Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. In November, Ann Arbor voters will decide whether their city should build its own electric utility and stop buying power from DTE. A group funded by DTE is suing to stop the vote. The man likely to be Ann Arbor's next mayor wants the city to take over. Yousef Rabhi is a Democratic Socialist. He beat 12-year incumbent Chris Taylor by 10 points over the endorsements of Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Senator Elissa Slotkin in a primary that was part of something bigger, a progressive wave. Dr. Abdul El Sayed took the Senate nomination. Donovan McKinney beat a sitting congressman. Abbas Alawiya will likely be the first Arab American in the Michigan Senate. Rabhi is a sitting Washtenaw County commissioner who spent 6 years in the state house, first elected to office while he was still a student at the University of Michigan. Commissioner Rabhi, welcome to the Metro.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
You won 55% of the primary vote against your opponent, 12-year incumbent, Mayor Chris Taylor, who got 45%. How did you accomplish that?
You know, it was definitely not easy. It was something that I knew that I was running against a strongly entrenched political machine in our community, but I felt that it was time for change in Ann Arbor. And as you said, there was this moment in our state where I think the voters of Michigan are asking and demanding that their elected officials and politicians start standing up for the people. And so really, we focused our campaign on things like affordability. Ann Arbor has become one of the most unaffordable places for people to live. I often refer to it on the campaign trail as Ann Arbor feels like a country club town, like you have to afford a membership to live there. And that cannot stand. I mean, we have so many people that work, that make our community what it is, whether you're a firefighter, a teacher, a nurse, and you're making Ann Arbor what it is, and you can't afford to live there. That's unacceptable. And we really focused our campaign on those issues and stayed focused throughout the campaign, despite the negativity, despite all the money that was spent against us. And ultimately, like you said, we won.
But you have a bit of a mountain to climb. I mean, if you win in November, you'll lead a city council that's dominated by members who ran with endorsements from Mayor Taylor. 4 of the 5 city council candidates were backed by Taylor in the Democratic primary. That immediately thrusts you into tension with folks who likely disagree with you. How do you plan to navigate that?
I think the reality is, that we actually probably do agree on most things, and that there are some approaches and things that we probably do disagree on. But the reality for me is that I have served, as you mentioned earlier, I've served for the last 16 years in elected office as a county commissioner and a state representative. I've been part of legislative bodies where I haven't always agreed with everybody. I've been the chair of the county board of commissioners. I've been the Democratic floor leader in the Michigan House of Representatives, helping to lead a caucus that I didn't agree with. Everybody all the time. I didn't vote yes on every single Democratic bill. There are opportunities to work together with people who you don't agree with. And for me, it's about, okay, the election's done. The voters decided who they wanted to represent them. And it is my job as the new mayor of Ann Arbor, hopefully, to just roll up my sleeves, get to work, meet with every single one of those candidates and currently elected officials, figure out what their goals and hopes and dreams and aspirations are, and see where that aligns with the things that I want to try to accomplish for this city. And I do think that I'm going to find with every single one of the other, 10 members of city council, that there are going to be opportunities to work together and to elevate their issues and to fight together for the betterment of our community.
I want to get into how you plan to do this, of course, but one more point about your opponent. Mayor Taylor had endorsements from Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Senator Elissa Slotkin. Here you are referencing that on the night you won the primary.
When I first said that I was interested in running for mayor of Ann Arbor, the political machine started to circle their wagons. The political machine in this town all got together and they endorsed my opponent. Very few elected officials were brave enough to stand with me from the beginning.
I want to push you on this point. You've held office as a county commissioner since you were a college student. You've also been a state representative, and then again, you became a commissioner. You also outraised your opponent, according to reporting in late July. you're saying that you beat the machine from the outside, but I think some could say that you won from the inside.
I think anybody that's followed my political career knows that I have always been a voice that has not been afraid to be even the one no vote at the table. When I was in the legislature, people, would often comment on the fact that I was like, reading each of the bills, going through each of the pieces of legislation and saying, hey, there's an issue with this, I'm going to be opposed to it. Even if all, 109 other representatives voted yes and I voted no, I was okay with that. Same thing on the County Board of Commissioners where, there is often, split votes. And so people have always known me to be an independent voice and to not just go along to get along. I often say to people, I didn't get elected to office to be part of a social club. I got elected to office to do what was right for the people. And that's what I've done consistently. And so I think what you're seeing is despite how the political establishment tried to paint me, the people of the city of Ann Arbor have known my track record for the last 16 years and were able to see through the lies and negative mailers that were sent out, and the negative ads, and to understand that my true intent from day one, from being elected, by the way, I was elected by one single vote back in 2010, which always has instilled with me a sense of connection to the fact that we live in a democracy and that it is the people of our community that are in charge. It's not politicians don't get elected to be anointed and, these all-seeing, all-knowing beings. It is truly in a democracy, the people of our community that are in charge. And I have believed that from day one. And so I think when I said that, and I still believe, I stand by what I said because the reality is what I was doing was challenging a political establishment that, anybody that expresses, hey, I would like to run for mayor, I'd like to run for, it's always wait your turn. It's not right for you. You're too controversial, whatever it is. And it's an anointment process. That's the political machine that I'm talking about. And honestly, a lot of the people that, well, not a lot, but several of the people that endorsed my opponent from, elected officials were actually pressured into that endorsement. There were, threats that were made. People felt like they didn't have a choice but to go along with the political establishment because they knew that what I was doing was rocking the boat to the, way that things are typically done.
May I? What kind of threats? I mean, that's something that I can't confirm right now on air, so I'd like to hear.
I've heard people say that they've been threatened with primaries. In fact, I think some people didn't run for re-election because they were threatened with primaries, to be honest. So, but what I do want to say this, though, sort of moving past that, that conversation and the reality of like what led to the election and what led to a very, a bitter back and forth. And really, one of the things that I'm proud of with this campaign is that we stayed positive throughout, and we talked about our issues. We talked about the core values that we have, that I have as a candidate that I've always, put forward in this community. I've always led with my heart. We did see a lot of negativity on the campaign trail, and you said I outraised my opponent. I outraised my opponent on the sort of hard money side that's disclosable, but there was hundreds of thousands of dollars of dark money that was spent in this race against me through several dark money, corporate dark money accounts that sent out, close to a dozen full mail pieces, ran ads on TV, on YouTube, on all these different platforms, sent out text messages, and we kept our campaign positive the whole time, and I was very proud of that.
I want to stay on that point for a moment about positivity politics, because this seems to be a part of the blueprint that is helping progressives across the country to win. Why do you think that is? It's like fighting with a smile.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because you have to approach this public service with joy. And I think if you don't approach it with some level of joy and love for the community, then you're kind of not doing it for the right reasons. And I think that, to me, it's always been genuine. It's not been something that I've had to like sit up at night trying to like imagine how I can be more positive. It's like I approach things with a smile on my face because I love my community. I love the people of my community, and I want to serve them in a genuine way. I have no ulterior motive. Some may argue this is a demotion in some ways after having served at the state level. And so, but I want to do it because I want to serve my community.
What do you think you can get done as mayor? I mean, it sounds like you feel that stepping into this role, you can have a really transformative opportunity here.
Yeah. I think that there's a few things. One is I do believe that I can have a transformative, that I can play a transformative role in the future of our community. But I do want to acknowledge that, like you said earlier, this is going to be, an uphill, because there are going to be, it's just like any legislative body that I've ever served on, where I'm going to have to work with people, again, that I don't agree with every day. Then that means that I'm not going to get everything accomplished on day one. It means that I'm going to have to work with people I don't agree with, and we're going to have to find common solutions. One of the things I talked about on the campaign trail is that there has been this sort of like lockstep approach to city government that I think the vote really turns the voters off, that they see, oh, all these decisions are being made. They're kind of being, concocted behind the scenes. They bring them out at the table. It's a rubber stamp.
Meaning
I actually
we want,
don't want
as
that.
voters, meaning we want deliberation. We
Yes.
want to see a public elected
Yes.
body talk things out and not sit down in front of residents and say, we've already made this decision.
100%.
I think a lot of people can agree with you. I'm wondering what, though, are going to be some of those lines that you draw. Because you're
Yep.
talking about being a no vote. You've been that no vote so many times previously. What does it mean to be that no vote in this role, but also to collaborate with others? Where are you going to say no? No way.
I mean, look, I think I've struck that balance throughout my political career. One of the things that I would draw the line on, and that I've said publicly on the campaign trail, is and let me back up a little bit and just say, one of the things that I was really concerned about and that prompted me to run for mayor of Ann Arbor is, in terms of the direction, is that I'm seeing that the city of Ann Arbor has been, very willing to give out a lot of corporate tax breaks to private developers. And I think that is something, obviously, that comes at the cost of the rest of our city services. We already pay some of the highest taxes in the state. The highest rent in the state of Michigan is in Ann Arbor. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we're paying these high taxes, but we're not getting the services that we're paying for because the city's doling out these, corporate tax breaks to these, big private developers. The other thing is that the city is taking our public land and selling it off to private developers. That is a red line for me. And I've said publicly on the campaign trail, I am fully opposed to the sale of any public land, whether it's parkland or any other public land. Public land fundamentally should be used for public purposes. And it is coming at this job with that ethic as sort of central. Public money should be used for public services, not for private profits. And the third component of that is when you look at the city's services that it provides, there's been this trend in government towards privatization. Services keep getting privatized, and when you privatize a service, somebody's making money, and the service quality typically declines. I want to try to in-house more services and resist the privatization of more and more city services. I want public workers to do public work. So fundamentally, I think those are three main buckets that I will be focused on.
You are a Democratic Socialist. You're likely to be the mayor of Ann Arbor. What do you want that title to mean to residents? Because, as we know, there is confusion around what that means to be a Democratic Socialist. What are the impacts of being a Democratic Socialist who oversees a relatively small city of about 120,000 people? I mean, I heard some of what you said already applying here when you talk about privatization and your rejection of that and wanting to strengthen public entities and to have more public workers. What else?
I think fundamentally, one of the things I'm excited about with my campaign and my service is to redefine for people what they imagine when they imagine a Democratic Socialist. Because I do think, like you said, and this came up a lot on the campaign trail, people basically saying, what does it mean? What is a Democratic Socialist? And so I think, for me, what I'd like to focus on is, again, redefining that. Because to me, what it means is bringing democracy to more areas of our life. What we've actually seen in our country is a move towards consolidation of the private sector, of privatization of city services. When we do those things, we lose the public control. It means that we de-democratize our places, our spaces, in the case of public land. I want to bring democracy back to those things. I want to bring democracy to workplaces. I support labor. I support unions. I support the unions that are in contract fights right now with the City of Ann Arbor, the Ann Arbor Transit Authority, and the Ann Arbor Public Schools. I believe in workplace democracy. I believe in democracy, the fact that we should all be able to vote in free and fair elections, free from the influence of corporate money in politics. That's something that I'm very passionate about. So reinforcing the need for good governance and emphasizing our democracy, and then re-democratizing, our city services. Like you mentioned earlier, you talked about public power. This is something that I'm really passionate about. These are core things that we need to survive. We need power. We need water. We need these, basic things. And so why is it that a private company is profiting off of that? Why is it that DTE is able to make $1 billion in profits every year out of our pockets? That is, to me, unacceptable. Why can we not re-envision this system that is fundamental to daily life as something that is a public good? And that's basically, to me, what democratic socialism is all about. It's about re-democratizing our lives.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Washtenaw County Commissioner Yousef Rabhi. He won the primary for Ann Arbor's mayoral Democratic primary race as a Democratic Socialist. Rabhi will now run unopposed in the November general election, although he still could face a challenge from a write-in candidate. We'll continue this conversation in a moment. Stay with us. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Yousef Rabhi. He's a Washtenaw County Commissioner and a Democratic Socialist. He just beat 12-year incumbent Chris Taylor by 10 points in an Ann Arbor mayoral primary race. We're discussing how he did that and how he would govern. We're going to get into the issues a little bit more, but we're talking right now to a Metro Detroit audience. Commissioner Rabhi, how do you think what you do in Ann Arbor impacts what goes on in Detroit and the metro area?
Thank you so much for asking that question. And this is something that I really focused on the campaign trail. I think Ann Arbor, I grew up in Ann Arbor. And I think that the culture in Ann Arbor is one that is fairly insulated, actually. And we tend to think of the highways that bound the city of Ann Arbor as sort of this like wall that, insulates us from the rest of the county and the rest of the state. And one of the things I really talked about on the campaign trail is the need to really deconstruct that wall and to say Ann Arbor is not just an island. We are a regional community and we need to be acting like a regional community. And one of the things that I bring to the table in my experience as a county commissioner and a state representative is not only experience with understanding the needs of our whole county, having relationships with the township supervisors and trustees all around us, with city officials in the communities around us, like Ypsilanti, which is often this overlooked community in our county. I want to build partnerships because I recognize that the issues that those townships and cities are facing are going to ultimately directly be related to the issues that my residents are facing. And I'll give an example. There's the issue of data centers, which is something that is really controversial and something people are talking about right now. I obviously am very concerned about data centers. And so this Saline Township data center, which is one of the largest data centers in the entire country at this point,
that is being built without approval from many residents, and which the Saline Township Board first rejected and acquiesced because of a lawsuit that was presented to them from Oracle and OpenAI. Yes, go on.
Yeah, and I actually showed up at the township meeting and spoke out as a county commissioner, and I acknowledged, I was like, I'm a county commissioner that represents the city of Ann Arbor, but I'm here because I believe that this is a regional fight. And the reason is, and this is like a direct connection, is now that the data center is under construction, Consumers Energy just proposed to build a power plant in Lima Township. The smokestack from that power plant would have spread pollution over the city of Ann Arbor. So there you have an issue where it's like, yeah, you can say, oh, my hand, wash my hands of it. It's in Saline Township. Doesn't matter to us. It does matter to us. It's the same water that we drink. It's the same air that we breathe. And that is fundamentally the belief that I have, that we cannot be isolated in our little corner. We have to be working with the people and the elected officials around us. And I believe that too in a Metro Detroit, regional way. I was proud to serve for 9 years on SEMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, where I got to meet monthly with elected officials from across the 7-county region. And I built relationships there, an understanding of how Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County can play a larger role in the region. Transit is another major issue that we've been talking a lot about. Obviously, Wayne County had a big vote the other day, but what role can Washtenaw County play? I was proud to be part of the group that originally helped to, sort of imagine the framework for the RTA and ultimately helped to make sure that Washtenaw County was part of the RTA. I want to help make sure that the RTA is successful. I believe in transit. I want to be able to, jump on a rail car in Ann Arbor and come to Detroit. My brother lives in Detroit. My uncle lives in Detroit. And so we need to be thinking regionally. And the last thing I'll say on this too is it's not just even regionally, it's statewide. I have talked a lot on the campaign trail about how, as somebody who was an elected official in Lansing, I understand how Lansing works, and I can be a voice in Lansing to get better policy passed for our state. And I intend to do that because I think that the role that Ann Arbor can play in the halls of power in Lansing is immense and has been completely underutilized.
It sounds to me like you're trying to pop the bubble.
Yes.
That Ann Arbor has been for
Yes.
so long, that many of us on the outside view it to be.
And I want the reverse to be true too. Like I want people to be able to come to Ann Arbor and feel like that it is a place that everybody can be part of and have a little piece of. That it isn't just a one-way street either way. That the people of Ypsilanti and Washtenaw County feel like they have a home in Ann Arbor, and that they feel like Ann Arbor is an entity that can be there in solidarity with them.
What does that look like? Because to be honest with you, when I go to Ann Arbor, I don't necessarily feel that it is a place for me.
Yeah, and when you don't feel that, when people coming to Ann Arbor don't feel that, it hurts our economy. It hurts our image in the universe. And just like I said earlier, this is something that even people that work in Ann Arbor, right? Again, it's that country club town feel of like you have to afford a membership to live here, but the people that work here can't even afford to live. And so they're just like, driving in, commuting in, working, and then leaving. I want the people that like live outside of Ann Arbor, that work in Ann Arbor, to be able to feel like they have a home here.
What does that do to a city when many of the people working within it don't live there and have to commute back and forth?
I think it's damaging because I think that it when you have people that can actually afford to live in the community that they're serving, it creates a sense of investment that I'm not questioning that folks already have that sense of investment, but it creates that deeper sense of investment. And it's also, I think, on the flip side, something that the people of Ann Arbor, and I believe that they do feel this, but that the people of Ann Arbor, it is honestly a little like I guess as a lifelong resident of Ann Arbor, I'll just speak for myself. Feels a little shameful. Like when I was I was actually in Ypsilanti at an event, and I talked to two City of Ann Arbor workers. One was a garbage collector, and the other one mowed our parks. Two employees that had worked for the City of Ann Arbor for multiple decades. One of them, I remember talking to him. His family's from Ann Arbor, grew up in Ann Arbor. Started working for the City of Ann Arbor, had to move out because he couldn't afford to live in the city. That's shameful. The fact that somebody who mows our parks, picks up our trash, can't afford to be part of this community, I feel like that's like a moment of self-reflection for all of us to say this is not right. It's unjust. And we need to make sure that there are opportunities. And so the affordability thing is actually a two-pronged problem. The first prong is the cost of things, the cost of housing, the cost of electricity, the cost of water.
Can we stay on housing actually for a moment?
Let me just finish my thought, which is
sure.
the second prong being wages. The second prong being the fact that people are being completely underpaid right now, that wages have not kept up with inflation, and that we are facing in our country broadly one of the largest inequality crises that we've faced ever in our history, where the wealthiest Americans are making exorbitant amounts of money and the working class are struggling to get by.
It is wages, of course. It is also a housing crisis.
Yes.
So I do want to go back to that.
Absolutely.
Because as you mentioned, your opponent, Mayor Chris Taylor, had a highly cohesive city council that approved the addition of multiple high-rise buildings to Ann Arbor's downtown skyline, along with a controversial land use and rezoning plan to increase housing density throughout the city. You ran against that. Why?
I actually wouldn't say that I ran against it. I support density. I support transit-oriented development. I support mixed-use development. And I have a long track record of voting in favor of developments, even private sector developments, that help to increase our housing supply in Ann Arbor. However, what I think the main thing that distinguishes my approach with the current approach on city council is that I believe that building high-end luxury condos, which is mainly what's being constructed in Ann Arbor, is not going to solve the affordability crisis. There's this false narrative out there that by building housing for the ultra-wealthy, that somehow it will trickle down to that garbage collector or the lawn, the city staff that's mowing our park lawns. I believe that is the same as trickle-down economics. It's trickle-down housing. It's not going to work. My approach is, I'm not saying that we should not build housing, that is market rate. But what I'm saying is that to solve the problem that we're facing, if you want affordable housing, you have to build housing that's affordable and attainable. And that's really the distinction.
So you've said you want to do that by expanding the Housing Commission, creating community land trusts, supporting housing cooperatives, and exploring social housing models. Those things often take a lot of time to get done. How are you going to do them fast? Yeah,
I think that's a great question. I think that they're often, the problem is they take a lot of time because the political will isn't there. And I think what I'm presenting is a political will to get it done. And I hope that I truly believe that the council that is currently elected and that is incoming supports the fundamental vision of creating more housing that is affordable. I do believe that. And so I think that I can work with my colleagues to get this done. One of the main tools that I want to introduce into the ecosystem is the issue of revenue bonding. It's different from general obligation bonds because it does not put the tax base on the hook. It is directly related to one revenue source. In this case, that revenue source would be rent or the sale of land trust homes or cooperative dues. So it ties the borrowing of public money to a direct revenue source rather than the larger tax base of the community. And I think that the city can actually look at itself as a developer of housing at multiple income scales. And so in some ways, the way I see it is if we build housing that is closer to market rate, if the city's building it itself, then we can use the revenue from that housing to essentially subsidize housing down the income scale to make sure that there are housing opportunities for those that are having trouble finding housing at market rate.
In other words, you might be able to qualify for some form of affordable housing while even making, let's say, a higher income than you would be able to qualify for that housing, let's say, in Detroit, because you're going to be looking at what the median income is for people in Ann Arbor and making those policies accordingly.
That's exactly right. So basically, we're looking at because the reality is our median income in Ann Arbor is higher than the average median income around us. And so we have to make sure that the housing reflects that piece. So you could have a situation where, I don't know what the income scale is exactly, but you could have a situation where that sanitation worker or the parks worker that I was referencing could be making, $70,000. That's still not enough money to live in the city of Ann Arbor because of the cost of housing. So I want to build housing for that, that segment of the population, as well as those that maybe have, even lower income jobs, or maybe that are unemployed. Our seniors are another massive population that is having issues finding housing in our community. And if I have time to just quickly say too, one of the components that I want to push is, in addition to building new housing, is keeping folks who are struggling to stay in their homes in their homes. There's a crisis with seniors who are on a fixed income. I've had so many calls with seniors that are basically saying to me, hey, my hot water heater went out and my home is now unsafe to live in. And, in situations like that, unfortunately, people can get evicted because there's unsafe living conditions. And so what if the city were to have a fund that can invest in, we're going to fix your hot water heater to keep you in your home so that you can keep staying in that home for another maybe 5 years, 10 years, rather than that senior becoming dependent on other systems or on, and ultimately it is my belief that it is a cost savings to the community to make those small investments. The last thing I promise I'll say is that housing is also a regional crisis. Housing and homelessness are regional issues. And one of the most eye-opening conversations I had was with an individual who's experiencing homelessness in Ann Arbor. There was actually a group of people. And the woman I talked to, it was just an informal conversation, but she volunteered that she had just moved to Ann Arbor from Detroit. She was a Detroit resident, grew up in Detroit, has been in Detroit her whole life. And she lived in her family home, but she could not afford to maintain it. And the roof collapsed and it became uninhabitable and she became homeless. And she moved to Ann Arbor and is now experiencing homelessness in Ann Arbor. So it's a regional issue. How can I, as the new mayor of Ann Arbor, hopefully, work with Mayor Sheffield, work with Mayor Hammoud to fix these problems on a regional basis so that we are, because we have to think about it that way.
I mean, and it's not only that, though. You have, over 800 people experiencing homelessness in Ann Arbor.
That's right.
How are you going to help them get shelter?
So that's a great question. And it's over 800 people in Washtenaw County as a whole, but a lot of them are concentrated in Ann Arbor. So I believe in a right to shelter. I believe that everybody in our community should have that right. I believe that housing is a human right. And if you believe that housing and shelter are a human right, then the fact that 800 people in our community are facing that crisis is a humanitarian crisis. It means that we're violating the human rights of those 800 people in our community today. And if we approach it in that way, in that sense of urgency and crisis, then we would find solutions. One of the solutions that I have put forward is actually purchasing, because right now the county and city pay to house people during the winter in hotels. And the private hotel rates that we pay are obviously, also furthering they're exorbitant, and they're furthering the profits of some of these hotel chains. Why not just purchase a hotel as the city and county and house people in there, not just in the winter, but year round? It creates permanent shelter, or, it creates shelter for people that are seeking it. And it saves money for the taxpayers in the long run. If we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every winter, why not just make that initial investment, even if it is a few $1,000,000? It saves money in the long run for the taxpayers. And, as much as people try to paint, folks on the left as not being fiscally responsible, that's one of my main approaches, is actually how do we save money for the taxpayers so that we can invest in more services. I believe in fiscal stability. I'm proud to have been the chair of the Board of Commissioners when we passed the first balanced 4-year county budget in the state's history, and to achieve a AAA bond rating for Washtenaw County.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Yousef Rabhi. He won the primary for Ann Arbor's mayoral Democratic primary race as a Democratic Socialist. Rabhi will now run unopposed in the November general election, although he still could face a challenge from a write-in candidate. I want to think about something that people are paying attention to across Michigan, and it's something happening in Ann Arbor. You've supported municipal power as an alternative to DTE.
Yep.
There is a ballot measure that could be approved in November by voters, and that would change everything. What will Ann Arbor have to do to run its own power? Because that's what this ballot measure would open the door for.
Yeah, so a few things I want to mention first. There are over 40 communities in the state of Michigan that already run their own power systems. This isn't some new invention that we've come up with. This is something that's pretty commonplace actually in the state of Michigan.
But this would open the door for other communities to really be thinking about this. This could set a blueprint for Metro Detroit area.
And to your point, to your broader point, this hasn't been done in a while. We would be the first to municipalize in a long time. And also to your point, I have been in conversations with elected officials across Southeast Michigan that are excited about what we're doing here, because they want to do it in their communities too. Because everybody across Southeast Michigan is sick and tired of DTE. We're sick and tired of the outages. We are sick and tired of the exorbitant rates and the fact that DTE keeps coming back to the Michigan Public Service Commission asking for more and more and more. We're sick of the fact that they earned $1 billion in profits last year that was not invested back in our infrastructure. We're sick and tired of the fact that DTE is spending our ratepayer money right now on lobbyists, on political contributions, on dark money accounts. They're spending our money on multi-million-dollar CEO pay packages. That money should be going back into our grid. And the last thing that we're sick about is that we're sick of a fossil fuel company that is spewing toxins into our environment, furthering global warming, is not moving more rapidly towards renewable energy.
Okay, so we get the point here. People are very, very sick. They're in the hospital on life support over this.
Yes, literally in some cases.
Do you have plans for this? If this measure is approved by voters, what's your plan?
So the plan here is, so there's two things. First of all, to understand, one is that this is the first step in a two-step process. There actually has to be two votes of the people. This only sets up the authority to ultimately do this. But the voters also have to vote by I believe it's a 60% supermajority to actually basically acquire the assets of DTE. So that vote has to come later. So this is just the first step in the process.
I mentioned a DTE-funded group that's suing Ann Arbor after it approved the ballot measure question for a city-owned utility. Are you concerned that that group could win?
DTE is going to spend a lot of money suing over this because we are threatening their bottom line, as we should be. And the reality is that I am not concerned that they will win. What I'm concerned about is that they're going to continue to sue and fight this. But I think that at the end of the day, when we have talked about this with the public and exposed the fact that DTE spent $1.8 million as the first donation to this group, and they try to, by the way, I was on a panel with a representative from this group trying to claim or downplay the affiliation of DTE with the group that's fighting against the ballot measure. You can't really downplay it when you're receiving a almost $2 million donation. And by the way, it was headquartered when they filed the paperwork for it. They used DTE's headquarters as the filing address for it. So this is a DTE front group. And I think when the community finds that out, they're like, oh my God, yeah, no, we're not interested in that. So I do think this is going to be a long process. It is going to take some time and resources, but ultimately, when we look at the benefit that is ultimately going to be achieved here, when we look at the fact that, and I keep reminding people this because people ask me, how are you going to pay for it? And I keep reminding people, we're already paying for it. When you pay your bills every month, you're paying for it. You're just, a portion of it is going to profits, a portion of it's going to lobbying, a portion of it's going to CEO pay. And we could make sure that all those portions, instead of going to those things, are either going to fix the grid, create renewable energy solutions, or reduce your rates.
Last one. It is no secret that anti-Arab and Muslim sentiment is on the rise, especially since Dr. Abdul El-Sayed won the U.S. Senate Democratic primary. Anti-Muslim hate targeting him online rose 20-fold. That's according to the Center for the Study of Organized Hate. Days ago, anti-Islamic activist Jake Lang came to Dearborn to agitate people. I'm glad that we got to spend most of this conversation talking about policy, about what you're going to do. But I would be remiss not to ask you, as an Arab American in the political spotlight, what has this been like for you?
It's been incredibly hard, but it's also something, unfortunately, that I've experienced most of my life. I grew up in Ann Arbor in the early 2000s, right after 9/11, and I was very afraid for myself, for my family, just seeing a lot of the hate and division and, racism that arose out of that. And it's kind of wild now, 25 years later, to see a lot of those same, division points emerging. I mean, when I would, similar to Abdul, when I would put stuff out, on social media, for example, I unfortunately screenshotted a lot of them, but I have like this massive library of just the most vitriolic things that you could ever imagine that people would say based on an assumption of who I am, and people, assuming you're not American, people assuming, all these different things, and it's really hurtful. I've even gotten, at one point I got, between being a county commissioner and a state rep, I've gotten several of these, but calls, threatening my life even. And so it's been incredibly hard for me. It's been incredibly hard for my family. And it is scary. And I want to acknowledge, I think in the same token of talking about all of this, that, with the rise of anti-Arab and anti-Muslim hate in our communities, we are also seeing a rise in anti-Semitism. And that's something that I have had many conversations with the Jewish community. And I think that one of the things I like to talk about, because it's true in my heart, is that I think the Jewish and Muslim Arab communities have a lot more in common than we have that divides us. And I think that we can and should take the opportunity to stand up for one another in the face of this, of this hatred that I think is born out of the same unfortunate place in our country's history. And I'm looking forward to being a mayor of Ann Arbor that can help transcend some of that hatred, help to heal some of the divides, and help to move our community and our region forward.
Washtenaw County Commissioner and Ann Arbor's likely next mayor, Yousef Rabhi. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. Up next, 45 presidents, 45 different styles, one hanging upside down. We'll speak with the painter behind Dads of Democracy, which is on view now at Wayne State. Stay with us.